Hello, everybody. My name is Edwin from Fleming MedLab. So we are a medical robotics startup helping stroke patients to walk again and to recover their brains with exoskeletons and software.
What is the problem that you identified that you're helping to solve, and why do
Sure.
you think that it exists in the way that it does right now?
What we're doing right now is helping stroke patients, but essentially, stroke is a brain disease, a brain rupture, a brain blood vessel rupture. So either it's a blockage or rupture. So it causes a shortage of oxygen to supply to certain area of your brain, resulting in some kind of brain cells damage. In fact, there is only around 10 to 15% of mortality rate. So a lot of people can survive the stroke incidents, but what a lot of general public does not know is that stroke actually is the leading cause of long-term disability. And because of that, it also leads to a really high rate of suicide attempts and depression. So many stroke patients actually survive the incident, but then they suffer from different symptoms. For example, they will get fatigued very easily. They cannot eat, they cannot walk, they cannot get off the bed. They require a lot of third-party assistance in life. Over 50% of them cannot walk properly afterwards. They also affect how they do other sorts of rehab activities. So essentially, if they cannot use their hands, their arms, if they want to do some kind of rehab activity, they still need to walk. They still need to be able to stand up first. So that's the first thing. Second of all, if they cannot walk properly, it also affects how they function on their daily lives. So, and it depresses them so tremendously that this is also one of the root cause of why there is such a high rate of depression among the stroke patients.
Could you give
Sure.
just an indication for people who are less familiar with stroke, just the
Mhm.
incidence of stroke in the
Sure.
general population, when people would typically see stroke as becoming much more of a prevalent issue as they age, like which kind of age
Sure.
range? And then when you speak about this 85% survival rate, what is the length of time that people then have to effectively live with a disability from the time that they've
Mm.
recovered from their stroke towards perhaps the end of their life?
Every year, there are around 15 million more new cases. So when I say new stroke cases, it means that it's the first time stroke. Because for stroke patients, if they do not recover properly, over 80% of them will have the second stroke incidents in the next 5 years. So 15 million people is a quite an alarming rate for just the first time stroke patient. Then, if we take into effect all the first time or subsequent stroke patients that still suffering from the stroke symptoms, then the population is going over 110 million globally. So around 10% will die from the incidents, and then another 10% roughly can sort of fully recover. And I do quote unquote fully recover because it means that they can almost perform like a regular people, live their daily life, but then there is still something wrong with their brain that they got injured, right? And then the residual around 80% would require external assistance for their daily lives, such as drinking water, getting off bed, going to bathroom, stuff like that. And then if you talk about the rates of recovery, it really depends on different stroke patients because the factors could be such as what were their lifestyles before stroke. That's first and most important. Second of all is where did they have stroke, which region in the brain, which type of stroke, because usually we say there are two types of stroke. So it's a blood vessel blockage or rupture. And then last but not least, also the age. We used to see that over 75% of stroke patients are elderly. And when we say elderly, it's age 65 or above. But right now, especially the last 5 years, we can see data showing that it's really trending downwards to the younger population. And when I say younger, it's not just about 30s, 40s, it's people in their 20s like myself. You would really see that they can one day be super healthy playing basketball, playing soccer. The next day, suddenly their eyes got really, really red. And then people just thought they didn't have enough sleep or drank too much Red Bull. It turns out their eye had a blood vessel rupture and then they had a stroke. So we can see a lot of Asian countries are getting more stroke patients, especially trending downwards, is actually towards the Asian countries. We are guessing that is because of lifestyles, how we eat a lot of fried stuff, and then the climates. There's a bunch of reasons, especially for a couple top tier cities in Asia. We have really, really long working hours. And people in the younger population don't just, have their life after work. They really work until midnight, right? So this is another alarming factor for us.
What were the problems with the existing way that stroke patients have been rehabilitated, and why is it that your company, Fleming MedLab, has a different proposal?
We wouldn't say there's necessarily a big problem in the current way of rehab, but we would say we saw a gap. So first of all, we are not replacing any kind of a physical therapies work or physical therapist, essentially. What we are doing is to provide more equipments and tools for them to perform their job better. We are looking into three different spectrum. The first pillar that our company is focusing on right now is the hardware, the robots. The second pillar is data and software. And the third pillar is something more offline, nothing technical. It's more like a holistic approach towards the medicines. But right now, we focus on the robot side first because of all the symptoms we saw in stroke patients. There's one particularly stood out. So when we say how they could not walk, we dug deep into the root cause of why they could not walk. Turns out it was their foot. Their feet sometimes tilting downwards. So if you looking podcast, you cannot see this, but then it's like their ankles are tilting downwards, dragging their feet every step of the way. So no matter they're walking on flat ground or staircase or slopes, it drags their feet a lot and causing them to fall a lot of times. Stroke patients, if they fall, there's 8 times higher chances to get a subsequent stroke. So right now we're building different robots for our ankles and our knee joints to help to assist them to walk in first. So right now we're solely focusing on the inpatient application, meaning we only serve or work with hospitals, rehab centers, clinics, stuff like that. So the environments of usage is totally supervised by a professional. We are also developing something for the stroke patients to train on their own or with their family members at their home. But that will be a later stage because right now it's really critical to serve the inpatient population because for stroke, there is a very particular timeline for recovery. We will say that there is a golden recovery window, which is the week 3 to month 6. So these 6 months is a golden recovery window for two folds, not just physically, then muscles can get better, the tendons can get more loose, but more importantly is the brain can recover better. So our brain is actually a very interesting organ. They can reorganize themselves, they can reshape themselves and restructure themselves. Is to train the muscles, train how they walk, but using this as a gateway, as an entry to send the stimulation to activate the brain. This is your chance to change your walking pattern. You can learn to walk again. We really need to capture the time of the golden window, the first 6 months. Afterwards, they can still change the brain, they can still recover, but then the efficacy is dropping drastically.
So how does that compare with other kind of rehabilitation pathways?
So quantitatively, we are carrying out our trials, but then we can see they are progressing in two folds. So they can walk faster and walk longer within a fixed time frame. Faster as in, depending on the situation, they can generally walk around 30% to 60% faster than their initial assessments. And then they can walk longer distances. We can also see around 30 to 70% of improvements.
How does your business model align with the kind of value that you're trying to deliver to your patients?
So our business model for the robotic side is quite straightforward. We have two methods. So first is just one-off selling the machines with the maintenance fee. Second model is the rental model. So particularly for the first model, selling the one-off machine, it's more appealing to all the hospitals and all the rehab centers because they have a bigger budget and they have to structure the financial plan a bit earlier. And then we can work that into their plan. And it also fits into their current purchasing procurement behavior because it's more like we are selling, say, an X-ray machine or a treadmill to them. There's no difference. But then for the rental model, they actually do not have 24/7 patients, right? Not like peak seasons or stuff like that. They might only have a couple stroke patients for 3 months every year. So rental model makes more sense for them. But these are our first step to establish our footsteps, our foots in the market. We also have other products coming in the line that we're speaking with other patients as well as clinics. So not just for the ankles, we also have other joints such as the knees, the hands, but we also think of other products that is not so much an exoskeleton. That is something that we can directly sell to consumer. It's think of it like a underwear garment that the patient can wear for 12 to 14 hours a day that can complete the cycle so that they can work on the professional rehab with the robots in the clinics and hospitals. And once they get home, they can still use another product to continue the recovery progress at home with no supervision needed. So that is one thing. Another potential stream of our business model is also the data and the software. We would use data to help running a few very simple statistics model, regression, stuff like that, to help us to tune the robots. So this part, the data is really, really helpful in two ways. First is to train our robots to be able to self-adjust in the future for different patients. So basically, one set of robots can fit thousands of patients, basically, without a lot of adjustments. This is how we can scale more effectively without a lot of engineers getting into the field. Second way is that we use the data to tune our software. And the software would not just be a visualization of data, a visualization of insight, so to speak, but also we want to help to project a prognosis, meaning we want to tell not just the therapist, but the family members, how long does this particular patient need to regain maybe 30% of mobility? How long does it take for them to be able to walk again? So this is very crucial because none of the alternatives in the market can achieve this yet. And we believe it's because of the lack of quality data source. And on this front, we are quite confident or we're quite positive that we can achieve it because of the data source we are getting. It's not just from the discharge report from the doctors, not just from the training programs from therapists, but also all the biomechanics data we gathered from the robots itself.
Like, what would you like to see in the future? What is the future that we're kind of heading towards that Fleming MedLab is working on?
That is actually a very insightful question because we have been talking about this a lot internally. And it's less about soft robotics. It's less about the techniques or the approach or what kind of engineering muscles we're employing, but more so the fact that we believe that not just stroke, so recovery, rehabilitation in general, we believe is really, really important for quality of life. But a lot of people neglect that, or maybe the general public do not pay as much attention towards this field as surgery or drug development. So the first thing we want to see in 5 years' time is that more people are aware that stroke rehabilitation or rehabilitation in general is very important. Now, down to stroke specifically, we want to also raise awareness of this disease. So we always say prevention is better than cure, right? So alongside our robotics, our software, we are also working on a lot of B2C consumer marketing, but those are nothing about our product. It's more so telling people what is stroke, how to prevent stroke, what is a healthier lifestyle. And also we work on a lot of exhibitions previously, is actually teaching regular people like you and me how to walk properly. So this is something we want to do. So promote a healthy lifestyle, promote how to prevent critical illness. This is something we want to do, not just using different engineering techniques per se to work on products. That's why our company does not just focus on robotics. We have the other streams for holistic rehab as well.
Where can they find out more information about you, and what's the best way to reach out to you and your company if they are interested in the work that you're doing?
Sure. For our company, definitely go to our website, flemingmedlab.com. So that would be a really brief website that encapsulates all our updates. But then if they are interested in our products or our clinical trial data or the information about that, I usually refer them to contact myself directly. So they can either go to LinkedIn, connect with me, I'm pretty active there, or they can just email me, and my email address should be easily found.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, Edwin. This has been a great
Thank you
conversation.
very much, Finn. Thanks for having me.